We completed till our measuring, measuring instruments, vernier calipers, screw gauge. Then we even did something related to your dimensions, and two applications were done, nothing but called as dimensional analysis. We are just going to move forward to the last part of the chapter, last subtopic of the chapter. And that is related to other type of physical quantities. So one type of physical quantities we have already did, that is related to your base quantities and derived quantities. At the same time, as we divide in the terms of dependency, we also divide the types of physical quantities into based upon their requirement of magnitude and direction. So when you talk about the physical quantities with the requirements of magnitude and direction for their definition, we split them as scalars and vectors. So when we define scalars, these are those quantities which require only magnitude for their definition. When we talk about magnitude, I can list out some few examples based on that. So you can have distance, speed, work, energy, power, pressure, and so on. There are many others. Means when we measure these quantities, the examples which I specified, so the measurement of these quantities require only magnitude to define them, only the value, as if distance, 10-kilometer distance, 15-kilometer distance, 10 meter per second as a speed, 100 joules of energy, then you can say 10 watts of power, 20 pascals of pressure. Means all are these nothing but simply values. When we use only magnitude, only values to define a quantity, we call them as scalar quantities. At the same time, the second type of quantities are vector quantities. Nothing but those will need both magnitude and direction for their definition. Means they need both to define them completely. Simple examples, we have displacement, velocity, acceleration, force. Then we can have torque, momentum, etc. So displacement related to distance in a particular direction, or else you say the shortest path. So the shortest distance between 2 points is your displacement, which has a direction also specified. Similarly, velocity, displacement for time, it's a vector quantity because it needs magnitude as well as direction. Acceleration, change in velocity by time, again a vector. Force, vector quantity, as it is written as mass into acceleration. Then torque is a vector quantity as it is written as force into distance. Then momentum. Momentum is nothing but your product of mass and velocity. Again, it's a vector quantity. So all the examples which were stated under your magnitude and direction will be defined as vectors, and those listed under your only magnitude will be termed as scalars. This is a basic definition. What do you mean by scalars and what do you mean by vector quantities? So they are physical quantities just divided in terms of their measurements. One measured using only magnitude, other measured using magnitude as well as direction. Then more briefly, we need to understand what are your vectors, what are your types of vectors, how are they represented, how to get their values, how to add them, subtract them, how to get the multiplication done, means various things. Means first to understand its types, and then to study various operators acting on it, or various operations of it. So all these things we need to just cover it up. So first of all, when I say as vector, we have already defined that it has magnitude and direction. We know to represent a scalar written as simply a number 23, 52, 65, 71, just a number along with a unit defines a physical quantity. But when you have to represent a vector as it possesses both magnitude as well as direction, so first we are going to study how it is represented. So to represent a vector, suppose I take a point A, I take another point B. So I need to move from point A to point B in a straight line. If I'm talking from A to B, so I have a specific direction that I'm moving from A to B. So the arrow represents the direction. So for this particular diagram, a diagrammatic representation, you can say the point where the arrow is being located or the final destination, you can call it as a head of a vector. And the start point is called as a tail of a vector. So whenever I represent in a diagram a vector, the head is where the arrow or the final point is located, and tail is nothing but where your initial point is located. Now the length of this AB or the representation of this AB will be done as AB with an arrow on its head. So this is how we write it. This is how it is represented mathematically. So one is mathematical form, one is diagrammatic form. So diagrammatic form, just specify an arrow from where to where you have to go. And when you write in a mathematical form, you need to just tell the points from which point to which point and just represent an arrow on its head to represent that it is a vector. Or else you can simply use a bar. Both the representations are correct. You can use an arrow or you can use a bar. So the arrow doesn't represent that it is moving towards right. So don't get confusion that this arrow represents a direction that it is moving towards right. Nothing like that. The arrow just represents that it is a vector. It has a direction. The direction can be anywhere. It is not at all resembling a specific direction. It's just representing a vector. So that is how mathematically you represent the length of this, because vector has magnitude as well as direction. So the length of this vector or the magnitude part of this vector will be represented by using a mathematical operator called as modulus. So we write it as mod of AB. So when you wrote AB vector, it had magnitude and direction. From that, if I write mod of AB, it represents specifically the magnitude, nothing but the length of the vector, the value of the vector. Is it clear? Any doubt till this? You have 1 minute. If anyone want to ask anything, they can ask. So that was your about scalars, vectors, and small introduction on how to represent a vector quantity. Okay. Next, we're just going to study about types of vectors. I just kept my chats also on. So those who want to ask anything, they can just put on the chat. Don't hesitate to ask anything. Okay. So when we talk about types of vectors, the first type you are going to learn is your zero vector. When I say zero, it is represented as zero with an arrow. Or else you can say zero vector has magnitude as zero, since the resultant value is zero. Simple example, you can say when an object is moving along a circular road, if an object completes one complete circle, we call that displacement is zero. But it has a direction tangential to the given circle at that moment. Since it has a direction, but since it has returned to its own point, so the resultant displacement is zero. So that is called the meaning of a zero vector. So zero vector is nothing but whenever you talk about the resultant value is zero. First, representation is also specified. More specifically, they are used in equations. Whenever you write some mathematical equations for vectors, as if you write 2 plus 3 equal to 5. So this is a scalar equation, arithmetic equation. But when you write a vector plus b vector equal to 0 vector, this is called as a vector equation. So if an equation has vectors involved, it will be called as vector equation. If it has all scalars, it will be called as an arithmetic equation. So in vector equation, if you want to put a 0 to indicate that the resultant is 0 of all the addition of vectors, you use 0 vector. So that is its application. Second is unit vector. As the name indicates, unit means 1. So the magnitude is equal to 1. It's 1 unit. It has a typical representation. As 0 vector has a representation 0 with a arrow, similarly unit vector also has a typical representation, and the representation is nothing but a given vector will have a cap on its head. Thus it will be represented as AB cap. So putting a bar, putting an arrow above the alphabets indicate that it is simply a vector. But when you put a bar, when you put a cap over the alphabets, it represents that it is specifically a unit vector. Means what is hidden in it? The hidden thing is the magnitude is 1. By definition, if I want AB cap, whenever you represent any vector, a vector can have any magnitude. Simple example, if I say 5 meter towards east, that means I'm moving towards east and my displacement is 5 meter. But if the same vector is divided by 5, 5 and 5 will get cancelled and the magnitude will become 1 unit. So it has now become towards east by 1 meter. And how I got 1 meter? When I divided the entire vector 5 meter towards east by 5. Means I divided a vector by its own magnitude to get the value as 1 meter towards east. Means if I want a unit vector whose magnitude is 1, I need to divide a vector by its own magnitude. As if in that example we did, in which I said I'm moving 5 meter towards east and divided the 5 meter towards east by 5, I got 1 meter towards east. Means a vector was divided by its own magnitude. So when divided by its own, the magnitude becomes 1 and it is called as a unit vector. So this is how it is defined. Vector upon its own magnitude divided by its own magnitude is said to be a unit vector. That means it is having a specific direction with value 1. So now using that, I can find any new vectors. So now I got 1 meter towards east. If I multiply 10 to it, if someone walks in the same direction by 10 units, so that becomes a new vector of magnitude 10 in the same direction. That means unit vector represents a particular direction with magnitude as 1. And if you multiply some new magnitude to that particular unit vector, you will get a new vector in the same direction. So that will understand more clearly when we will be doing the unit vector in detail later on. Now we will just understand the definition. So it indicates a specific direction with value as 1. So we have 3 predefined unit vectors. So for that, I'm just representing a plane, a 2-dimensional plane. On that plane, I'm taking an x-axis. Perpendicular to that, I'm taking a y-axis. So these two axes are lying on the plane, on a paper. I'm drawing a third axis which is perpendicular to the paper, labeling it as z. So now I have 3 mutually perpendicular vectors. So whenever you represent a point on a graph paper, you write it as 2, 3, which states, for example, 2 becomes your x coordinate, 3 becomes your y coordinate. So you know when you represent a point on a paper where it is located with respect to x and y. So x and y becomes your reference axis. Similar way, if you have a point in space in 3-dimensional, you have 3 axes. So if I write a coordinate as 2, 3, 2, that means 2 is your x coordinate, 3 is your y coordinate, and 2 is again your z coordinate. And you will get a 3-dimensional point. So in that specifically 2 is along x, 3 was along y, and again 2 was along z. Means x, y, z were my reference directions. And with respect to that reference directions, I had certain magnitudes. Using that, I got a point. Similar way, to represent those 3 reference directions, we define 3 unit vectors. Because unit vectors nothing but give directions whose values are 1. Multiplying any value, you can get new vectors. So if I want a unit vector along x, it is taken as I cap. When you want a unit vector along y, you consider it as j cap. And you want a unit vector along z, you call it as k. So I, j, k are the unit vectors, are the vectors whose directions are along x, y, z axis with value as 1, whose magnitude is 1. So if I want a vector along x direction, I can write it as 3 I cap. I can write it as 4 I cap. I can write it as minus 10 I cap. So when I write it as 6 I cap, so 6 I cap is nothing but a unit vector into your magnitude 6. So I got a new vector. So I can call this new vector as a vector, whose direction will be towards positive x. So I can just try to draw over here. So this will be your a vector, whose length will be 6 units, and it will be parallel to the x-axis. Why it is parallel to the x-axis? Because it is having I cap. So here I cap represents the direction along x-axis. If I would have written minus 6i, then minus 6i would have been in the opposite direction, because it was minus I, and minus I is nothing but negative x direction. Means the I cap, j cap, k cap, or anywhere if you find out caps, those caps are representing a particular direction, and the number before it multiplied gives the magnitude of it. And when you multiply magnitude and direction, you give rise to a vector. Say, for example, I wrote over here 6I cap became a new vector. So that is the importance of unit vectors. They are more of directions with unit magnitudes. Can be used to form new vectors of different magnitudes along the same directions. So any doubt in the first type and the second type? You have 1 minute, you can just go through it. Anyone want to ask anything, they can just put on the chat. Yeah, Bhakti. Opposite to x-axis is negative. That is negative x-axis. That will be minus pi cap. Similarly, opposite to y-axis will be minus y. That will be minus j cap. And similarly for the z. So downward will be your minus k cap. Okay, I'm just moving to the next type. Now next third type is equal vectors. So the two vectors, two or more vectors can be equal vectors, but currently we are just taking a case of two vectors at a time. So two vectors will be equal when their magnitude and direction both are same. So suppose if I have first vector as a vector, second vector as b vector, see the length and direction both is same. They are parallel as well as the length is exactly equal. So I can directly write in the form of a equal to b. So whenever I write a vector equal to b vector, that means magnitude and direction both are same, called as equal vectors. Next, you have something called as like vectors. When I say like, when the direction will be same, magnitude may or may not be same. So the magnitudes are different, but the direction is exactly same. So you can take an example. This is your A, this is your B. See, they are parallel. They are pointing in the same direction, but the length, the magnitude is not same. So such type of vectors will be called as like vectors. So when it is represented, we use something called as m times b vector. What is this m? M is called as a scalar multiple. Nothing but when I compare the length of A and B, there might be some relation in their length. Simple example, if B was exactly half of A, then I can write A is equal to 2B. If I want to compare its magnitude, I can write length of A is twice of length of B. So this twice is nothing but a scalar value, which indicates the relation between its magnitude. That is called as a scalar multiple. So when I write A equals to MB, so here M indicates the relation of its magnitude. See in the equal vectors, M value was equal to 1, means they were exactly same. Here M value will be something 1/3, 2/3, half, or 3 times, twice, 4 times, anything. So whenever a vector is represented as a scalar multiple of other, you can say both the vectors are pointed in the same direction. They are parallel to each other. They are like vectors. Next, I have something called as unlike vectors. When we say unlike means magnitude will be different, but the direction is opposite. Means they are parallel, but opposite, called as anti-parallel. Means if this is your A, this will be your B. So again, magnitude, there will be some relation, twice, thrice, 1/3, half, 1/4, 1/5, 2/5, whatever. So I can represent one vector as a scalar multiple of other. But since the direction is exactly opposite, we use a minus sign. So in physics, minus indicates direction. When I wrote a vector, one vector as a minus of another vector, that means the minus indicates that the directions are exactly opposite. And m was nothing but the scalar multiple, the relation between their length. It's just a relation between their length, it's simply a magnitude. So we call it as a scalar multiple. Are the other three types clear? Equal, like, and unlike. Okay, I'm just moving ahead. Next is something called as parallel. Now your parallel is similar to your equal and like vectors. So when you combine equal and like vectors, the combination of both is parallel vectors. Nothing but direction should be same, magnitude may or may not be same. If magnitude is same, we call equal. If magnitude is not same, we call as like vectors. So your parallel vectors are the combination of equal and like vectors. So directly, you can tell that the relation is similar. Where m, if it is 1, we say equal vectors. Where m is not equal to 1, we say it as like vectors. So equal and like vectors are included under parallel vectors. Next, we have something called as opposite vectors. Opposite vectors, or else you can also call it as anti-parallel vectors. Again, magnitudes may or may not be same, but direction is exactly opposite. Once again, the relation will be minus mb, where m is a scalar multiple. The only change is happening with the sign. If it is positive, direction is same. If it is negative, direction is exactly opposite. And the last type is called as co-initial vectors. When I say co means common. Initial means the starting point. So co-initial will mean the common initial point. Means all the vectors which are acting, all are having the same common point, same initial common point. Hence it is called as co-initial, common initial vector. So you can diagrammatically represent in this way. So see, the tail of both the vectors or the starting point of both the vectors, the initial point of both the vectors are common, is same. Hence they are called as co-initial vectors. There is no relation between them. As we had equation for the rest of the five, we don't have any relation for co-initial vectors. So these are the 8 different types of vectors. One was zero vector, magnitude 0, unit vector, magnitude 1 with a specific direction. Multiplying any other magnitude will give me new vectors in the same direction. Next was equal vectors, magnitude direction same, A equal to B. Then was like vectors, magnitude will be different, but direction is same, that will become your A equal to MB. Then was unlike, magnitude will be different, but direction is exactly opposite, that becomes A equals to minus MB. Then parallel vectors are nothing but combination of equal and like, means magnitude may or may not be same, but direction is always same. So A equal to MB. If M is 1, becomes equal vectors. If M is not equal to 1, it becomes like vectors. Opposite vectors, also called as anti-parallel, means magnitude may or may not be same, but direction is exactly opposite. In the last, we have something called as co-initial. Common initial means starting from the same point. So any doubt, you have 1 minute, just go through, try to memorize, try to recall all the types. After 1 minute, I'll just change the slide if no doubts have been there. Okay, so should I proceed? Okay. Now, once we have done our types of vectors, now we need to just study about some operator of addition. how to add two vectors, or what is the meaning of addition of vectors. So whenever I talk about addition of vectors, the only meaning is finding the resultant, finding the effective vector. Or you can, other words, you can say when I use the word addition of vectors, it means I'm just finding a combination of all those. Means if everything is acting at a point, what is the final vector which will be generated? What is the combination effect that will be generated? That is the actual meaning of addition of vectors, finding the resultant. So I'll take various cases. So first we can take a case of parallel vectors, and we know parallel vectors are those in which magnitude may or may not be same, but direction are same. So just take an example. Suppose if I have a box, I'm pushing that box in the same direction using two vectors. One vector is A, which magnitude I'm assuming it as 5 Newton force. Another I'm applying a B vector in the same direction. Suppose the magnitude I'm taking it as 3 Newton. So we know that the box is going to be pushed in the same direction with a combined effect of A and B labeled as R. And even we know the magnitude that you are going to get. So R will be nothing but 5 plus 3 equal to 8 Newton. So when you write R equal to A plus B, means magnitude of R equal to magnitude of A plus magnitude of B in this case. This is called as arithmetic equation or the mathematical equation, because we are relating only the magnitudes. But when I talk about addition of vectors, means I need a vector equation, and that vector equation is represented as your R, the green one, was a combination of A and B. So your R is equal to A and B. This is your vector addition or the vector equation. So not necessary that both the equation will be same. Your mathematical equation and the vector equation may or may not be same. It will be same only when you're talking about parallel vectors. But what if you have opposite vectors? Nothing but anti-parallel. Again, I'll take the same example of the block. Pushing towards right with a vector A magnitude 5 Newton, and pushing towards left applying a B vector whose magnitude is 3 Newton. So now the box will move towards right with a smaller value as previous, and that value is nothing but given as 5 minus 3 equals to 2 Newton. So here the arithmetic equation is R is equal to mod A minus mod B, means it is more related to subtraction. But there is nothing term related to subtraction of vectors. So when you're writing a difference, it is just means that your combined effect of A and B resulted R. But when you compare the directions, it states that R is equal to A plus minus of B. Why minus of B? Because with respect to A, where B was exactly opposite. And when it is exactly opposite, you represent by a minus sign. Now, that is how you represent your resultant R when it is your opposite vector. See, it is addition only. It is finding the resultant only. It is your A plus, but the B direction was opposite, so we wrote it as minus of B. So here also you can say your mathematical equation and your vector equations are same. So any doubt till this? Okay. So after the first and the second type of vectors, means applying the property of addition, if I have a case where they are coplanar. Coplanar nothing but two vectors lying in the same plane. Plane means nothing but a flat surface, a two-dimensional surface. Simple example, the page or a single paper represents as a plane surface. So if you have coplanar vectors lying on the same plane, suppose the box is getting pushed by a vector A towards right and one we are applying B, which is nothing but pulled. So you are applying two forces now and the directions are different. A is acting towards east. If I just take it as some north, east, west, north, south direction. So A, if it is towards east, B is somewhat your northeast. Since the directions are different, magnitude is also different. So it is not of any of your types. Not your parallel vectors, not your anti-parallel, not equal, like, and like, none of them. Yes, but it can be your co-initial. Why it can be your co-initial? Because every body has a point where its mass is supposed to be concentrated, assumed as center of mass, where all the forces act. So if we just talk about your A and B, due to this pushing, can I say the point of application of A will be towards right and this is bit in the northeast direction, so it can be co-initial. If I take the common point as your center of mass. So that too we don't have to go in detail right now. If I have a coplanar vectors, so there are two methods how diagrammatically we can represent the result. So to diagrammatically represent, we have two methods. Mathematically, so final there will be only one formula which you can get by any one of the diagrams. So if I go by the diagrammatic method, so they have specified two laws. One law is called as triangle law. The first law used to find the resultant of two vectors which are coplanar. The law is said to be triangle law. There is some statement given for the triangle law. So when two vectors are represented by two sides of a triangle in magnitude and direction taken in same order, then third side represents the resultant vector. That means, in short, the entire statements want to say that both the vectors should have their head and tail connected. When I say taken in same order, taken in same order means it is in the same sequence, in the same flow. Means using A vector, if you reach a point, using B vector, you should reach the another point. It should go in one order. It should go in one flow. Means your head of A should be connected to tail of B. Or else you can also say head of B connected to tail of A. Any way you can connect. So it is a head-tail combination. So the above example, if I just try to combine in head-tail, so this is your A vector. Now B vector I can move anywhere on the plane because it is coplanar. So I will just place the tail of B at the head of A. So this became a first statement. Two vectors represented by two sides of a triangle, same taken in same order. Then the third side. So if I want to complete this triangle, I will make a third side. So the third side represents the resultant. And the direction of the resultant will also be in the same order. You started from this point. Using A vector, you reach this point. Using B vector, you reach this point. You started from this, you ended at this. So this becomes your result. This is the first diagrammatic representation of resultant R of two vectors A and B. First law. The first representation of resultant. They defined one more law, one more diagrammatic view as per the another scientist, and that law was called as parallelogram law. Now, when you talk about parallelogram law, again there is some statement given. So, if two vectors A and B represent two sides of a parallelogram in magnitude and direction, then their sum is the diagonal to their common point. So, in the entire statement, they have specified a word called as common point. Common point means they should be common with an initial point. Means that becomes your co-initial. If it is your co-initial, that means both will have same starting point. So nothing but it should be tail-tail connection. So this is your vector A. Now this will be your vector B because I just connected the tail to the tail of it. So they represent the two sides of a parallelogram. So if I want to complete a parallelogram, I will connect the remaining sides. So I got the shape of a parallelogram. Then they say the resultant is the diagonal. So obviously there are two diagonals. One is a short diagonal, one is a longer one diagonal. So there are two diagonals possible, but we need to select the diagonal which is passing the same common point. Means for this diagram, the diagonal will be the longest diagonal. Now if you just compare your triangle law and parallelogram law, see the value of R is not changing. It is just two different perspectives to imagine. One perspective states triangle with two vectors taken in same order and the third side of the triangle in the same order. And the parallelogram states two vectors with same common point forming a parallelogram, resultant represented by the diagonal passing through the same common. So the vector's magnitude and vector's direction, the resultant value is unchanged, is same for both triangle law representation and parallelogram law representation. So those are the two laws to define the addition of co-initial vectors, or more specifically, we cannot call co-initial, you can call addition of two coplanar vectors. So just go through it. In the entire statement, there was the hint to represent the diagram. I just specified which words are there and how we represented the diagram. You have 2 minutes, you can just go through it, compare the diagram as well as the statement. If you find anything confusing, be free to ask. I'm just giving 2 minutes to you all to just go through it once. So any doubt related to this? Okay, so I think so everyone is pretty clear with both the laws. So now we are just going to get the mathematical formula for the resultant. Because if A is known, B is known, so length is known means their magnitude is known. If I talk about the direction, as I specified earlier, that if I just assume A moving towards east, so B is somewhere towards northeast, making some angle with respect to east. So usually the directions are represented by the angles with respect to some reference. If I take A vector or east as the reference, you can say with respect to east, how much angle is being formed. So with respect to A, I will just assume some angle. So that angle will be known to us, means direction of A, direction of B, magnitude of A, magnitude of B. All these values are known to us. After knowing that, how to get the value of R. So that we are going to mathematically derive. So you can use either parallelogram law diagram or triangle law diagram. But both the diagrams, the answer is going to remain the same. I'm just using parallelogram law diagram to take the proof of the resultant. So there is an A vector represented as OA. I'm taking OB as the B vector. So these are the two vectors whose resultant is to be found, is to be calculated. And as I said, if I take OA as towards east, so some angle is going to form with respect to A vector. That angle I will assume it as theta later on. So this is your parallelogram, this is your resultant OC, and as I said, this angle you can take it as theta. Theta is the direction of your B vector with respect to A vector. If I say 30°, you will get a specific direction. Similarly, the resultant, the length, so I will get the magnitude, and direction again, I need some angle. So I'll just assume that angle as alpha. So I can assume alpha as the direction defined for your resultant R with respect to A vector. So A vector here is acting as a reference. And with respect to that, we are defining the directions for your B vector and R vector. So first, I will just have some assumptions that let your OA vector, which is represented as A vector, OB vector is represented as B vector, and OC vector be represented as R vector. And their magnitudes, nothing but the length. OA vector magnitude be represented as simply A. OB vector magnitude be simply represented as B. And OC magnitude be represented as simply R. And we know OB and AC are equal because they are opposite sides of a parallelogram. So the length of OB and length of AC will be same, which is B. After all the assumptions, to find the value of R, which is OC, the length of OC, I'm going to make use of something called as Pythagoras theorem. For Pythagoras theorem, I need a right angle triangle. For that, I will make some small construction. I will try to extend your OA and drop a perpendicular from C and label that point as D. So I got a right angle triangle ODC. To apply Pythagoras, I should know sides. Only then I can calculate the value of hypotenuse. So in the big right angle triangle ODC, I know OA. I don't know AD. I don't know CD. This is my first target before applying Pythagoras theorem is finding the value of AD and CD. So AD and CD are coming in the smaller triangle ADC, in which I know the value of AC as B, that is given to us. So hypotenuse is known, and I want to find the value of other two sides of the right angle triangle, in which one more data is known, that is angle theta, because it will be same corresponding angle. If angle is known and the hypotenuse is known, and if I want to get the value of other sides, I can make use of trigonometry. So means in triangle ADC, if I apply trigonometric ratio as sine cos theta, so cos theta will be adjacent by hypotenuse. So that will be AD by B, which implies B will be AD will be B cos theta. So I got the value of AD because B is known to us, and the cosine ratio for standard angles are also known to us: cos 30, cos 45, cos 60. They are known to us. Similarly, if I apply sine theta, that will be CD by AC opposite by hypotenuse, CD by B, which implies CD will be B sine theta. Again, CD will be calculated because B is known to us, and even the standard trigonometric ratio values are known to us. Now, since I know AD and CD, I can now target the triangle ODC to apply Pythagoras theorem as OC square equal to OD square plus DC square. Now, OD square can be split as OA plus AD, the whole square plus DC square. You can substitute the values. OC is R, O is A, AD is B cos theta, and DC is B sin theta. Everything, all the data is available over here. Once you get that, now here I can apply the binomial identity. A plus B the whole square. A square plus 2AB plus B square. So that will become A square plus 2AB cos theta plus B square cos square. Because cos theta into cos theta or cos theta the whole square is written as cos square theta. And B sin theta the whole square will be written as B square sin square theta. Then I can take your B square common. Inside it will be cos square plus sin square. And using identity, cos square plus sin square becomes 1. So I got the resultant value. So see, magnitude of A is known to us, magnitude of B is known to us, and even the trigonometric ratio for standard angle is known to us. Means all the values on the right hand side is known to us. So after calculation, you will get the value of resultant R. So this is the mathematical formula to get the value of resultant R. When two vectors are known to us inclined at angle theta to each other. If I want the direction, so the direction means angle. If I want angle, again it is a right angle triangle. So to find the angle, I will use the ratio tan. Why I am using tan? Because in that right angle triangle, the hypotenuse is not given in the data. The hypotenuse was to be calculated. Means I cannot make use of the hypotenuse. So in trigonometry, the ratio which does not include hypotenuse in it is either tan or cot. I can make use of tan as opposite by adjacent, CD by OD. OD completely I don't know. I can split it as OA plus AD. If I substitute, I will get B sin theta upon A plus B cos theta. Now again, A and B are the magnitudes known to us. Sin and cos are the trigonometric ratios of standard angles known to us. I will get the value of tan alpha. Then the angle will be tan inverse of the value. Tan inverse is nothing but the inverse operator to get the value of angle. So once you know the angle, means you know the direction. So this formula gives you the magnitude. This formula gives you the value of direction. So A, B, and theta, only three things should be known to us. Using those three things, you can calculate the value of resultant. You can calculate the value of the direction with reference to one of the vector. So that is the proof. Mathematical value of resultant and direction. So anyone is having any other doubt? in this entire proof, do let me know. Try to write down the notes parallelly whenever it is being taught. Don't wait for the notes to be shared or don't take the screenshots. Have an habit of always writing something. That will boost up your revisions. So anyone is having any doubt? Okay, I'm just moving ahead. I'm just having one example. Magnitude of A, B, and C are respectively 12, 5, and 13 units, and A plus B is C. Means C is the resultant of A and B. Then the angle between A and B is. Okay, one answer I got is 90 degrees. Recheck the answer once, Bhagesh. 90 degree, okay. One more answer I'm getting as 90. Try to make the diagram if possible. A is 12, B is 5, and C is 13. Okay, Pradnan is also getting 90. Okay, I'll just cross check. So mod of A is given as 12, B magnitude is given as 5, and C magnitude is given as 13. Yeah, I think so. It's a Pythagorean triplet kind of thing. So your C can be written as root of A square plus 2ab cos theta plus B square. Substituting the values, 12 cos theta, 120 cos theta equal to 0. Cos theta is 0 degree, so theta will be equal to 90 degree of pi by 2. It's correct. Bhagyashri, Bhakti, and Pragyan. Or else directly you can identify it as Pythagorean triplet also. But now can't be sure of it because you don't know what formation they are using over here. One last example we'll do. Two forces 3 Newton, 2 Newton are at an angle theta such that the resultant is R. First force is now equals to 6. Then the resultant becomes 2R. What is the value of theta? Any answers? What will be value of theta? Yes, anyone? 120. Okay, I'll just check once. So your mod of A is given as first magnitude 3, second magnitude, I'm assuming it as 2 Newton. Resultant is given as R, so I can apply the basic formula and I can get the value of R as root of A square plus 2AB cos theta plus B square. So R square will be, substituting the value, I'll get the value as 13 plus 12 cos theta, first case. Now in the second case, your A is increased to 6 Newton, B is remaining same, and your resultant is becoming 2R. So again, I'm applying the formula for resultant, squaring on both sides, 2R will become 4R square, substituting the values, and this R square I can replace over here 4 times. Try to simplify the equation, I can get the value of cos theta as minus half. Cos theta minus half is for 120 degree. Yeah, Bhagyesh, you are correct. Theta is 120 degree. So that is how you can make use of the resultant formula when two vectors corresponding to their inclined angle specified. So anyone, any doubt? Okay then, we'll just end the lecture. Just try to go through the recording once. If anyone is having any other doubt, or else you can just post in the group. Tomorrow we'll just continue with the remaining part of unit vectors and resolution of vectors, and we can end the chapter. Then bye bye. Thank you.